To have the volume of housing that we need, we have to go into what is called greenfield development. That is, areas that are not now used for housing or other commercial uses. And so, yeah, we're going to have to build in areas that are not already built out. But that is what we have been doing in California ever since California's been around. And yeah, I like the open spaces, but we can't afford the open spaces. Or put another way, our love with open spaces is causing people to be camping out on the streets in major cities like San Francisco or Los Angeles because prices are so darn high for housing. And so, yeah, open space is nice, but when you talk about, do we want habitat or do you want people able to afford homes other than the sidewalks? I think we have to draw a balance. And the right kind of development outside of already developed areas can make a lot of sense. If it's done right, it can be done. And it makes actually environmentally more sense to do it here in California, which has such a temperate climate. People living here have a lower carbon impact because they don't need as much heating or cooling as they do in other parts of the country. And so we can develop homes in California that are going to be an environmental net benefit rather than forcing people to move to other states like Idaho, which has huge heating bills, or the desert of Arizona, or whatever. So we can be smarter than we are about this. And simply saying no new development in undeveloped areas is not a smart way of proceeding.
Now, Jim, was there a time that you decided to look into this? Did something motivate you?
I have been litigating property right cases for 40 years, representing pro bono with Pacific Legal Foundation landowners that are trying to make use of their property, who have run into all kinds of environmental restrictions, lawsuits, all kinds of difficulties in trying to build the homes near where people want to buy them and live in them. And it came to me that these lawsuits after lawsuits that I've been involved in are all serving to restrict the supply of housing. And it became really apparent to me that our tremendous shortfall in housing development in California and other states is a direct consequence of our failure to respect the right of people to use their property and to use their property rights in a way that meets the demand that people have for new housing. So after litigating these cases for 40 years, I thought it was really time to put my experience and thoughts to paper. And so I wrote Nowhere to Live, this hidden story of America's housing crisis, to talk about how we got into the mess we are today and hopefully how we can get out of it.
You've been involved with a lot of cases, right?
Right.
Can you tell us some of the things you have seen that people should know about?
Well, I would like to talk about our most recent victory that Pacific Legal Foundation had at the Supreme Court. George Sheets was a 73-year-old man, and with his wife and grandson, he wanted to put down a 1,858 square foot manufactured home on 10 acres of property in rural El Dorado County, which is just east of Sacramento. And the county told him, well, yes, you can have a permit to put a manufactured home on your 10 acres, but you have to pay to the county $23,400 for traffic impact fees. And George, he said, traffic impact fees? I don't have that kind of impact on traffic. And the county said, well, yes, you do, and that includes about 10% of that is to improve a highway interchange for Interstate 50, which is about 5 miles by road from his house. And the California courts upheld that. We took that case to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court agreed with us that El Dorado County can't force somebody to pay that kind of money for a development fee, for a transportation impact fee, unless the county can prove that the development is going to cause that kind of impact. And we don't think we can, or we don't think the county can. So that is just one of our most recent cases. I argued a case at the Supreme Court representing Anthony Palazzolo. He was a retired tow truck driver and junkyard operator. He had about 18 acres on the Rhode Island coast, and the state was not allowing him to develop the property. And the state would not even allow him to bring a suit arguing that the state has taken his property. So I argued the case and said, look, he's owned this property for 20 years in one form or another. He should have a right to sue to argue that the state has taken his property if they won't let him develop that. And we won that case as well. So we've had a number of cases, but the common thread of all of our cases is we're representing people pro bono who are just up against government bureaucracy, up against government fiat, up against, in a sense, government abuse, not allowing people to exercise their property rights in the way that are guaranteed, in the way that is guaranteed by the Constitution.
If you like California Insider and you like to know what's going on in California, make sure to check out Epoch Times. This is a newspaper that started by a group of Chinese Americans because of human rights abuses in China, and now is starting to grow here. Make sure to go to the Epoch Times website and check out the California section, where you can get a lot of fresh perspectives on what's going on in California. Now let's go back to the interview. If we look at the California cost of housing, it's around double the national average. How much of it do you think is the cost of lawsuits?
I think a significant part of it is not so much the cost of lawsuits and attorneys, but the cost of delay and the disincentive that is given to people to want to build houses in California. Because if you want to build, you have to realize you are going to face lawsuits if you have any significant project at all. Those projects are going to take years and years more time to develop in California because of the lawsuits than it would be in another state. So the cost of the delay, the cost of the attorneys, and the uncertainty. Maybe you're going to lose those lawsuits and you can't develop your property. And that can certainly happen because if you cross a T the wrong way or dot the I the wrong way on an environmental impact report, you may lose a lawsuit and you have to start over from scratch, from square one. And that's something I talk about a lot in my book, Nowhere to Live, of the lawsuits and the delays that are caused. So yeah, I think the significant price of housing in California being higher than it is elsewhere, a large part of that is due to the environmental lawsuits.
Why does it cost a lot more to delay a project? Can you explain that?
Well, a developer may have a certain amount of money borrowed from the bank at interest rates of, going interest rates, 3, 5, 7, 10%, whatever the, interest rates are at the time. And every year that you delay being able to build a project, the developer has ongoing costs to pay for the land and with no return coming in. A developer makes money by usually borrowing money, buying land, building homes, selling the homes, and getting a return on the investment. But that's incredibly difficult to do in California. So a developer is going to have to build into the price of the housing a significant increase to make up for the potential of lost time. Time is money when it comes to investment, and that's what developers face here in California.